All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for attending this meeting of the Planning Committee on the 3rd of March 2022. My name is Councillor Caleb Tomlinson. I am the chair of the committee. This meeting is being recorded and streamed live to YouTube. If you're attending the meeting, I can see your signs. If you're attending the meeting because you're a member of the public and you wish to speak on any of the matters this evening, please note you have 4 minutes. I'll invite you to come to the table, press your microphone, introduce yourself, and then from there you have 4 minutes. Voting will be undertaken by the electronic system. The outcome of the vote will then be confirmed by our legal officer, Alex, once complete. If you do have mobile phones with you, which you probably will have, please put them on silent. Thank you. We're not expecting a fire alarm, so if the alarm does sound, the fire exits are behind you to the left and to your right-hand side, and we'll meet on the car park. Okay, I will now ask everyone to introduce themselves, starting with the gentleman to my left.
Good evening, Alex Jackson, solicitor.
Charlotte Lynch, Democratic Services Officer.
Councillor Peter Molyneux.
Councillor Claire Hunter.
Councillor Gareth Watson, Camp Green, Gregson Lane.
Councillor Kath Unsworth, St Ambrose Ward.
Councillor Phil Smith, New Longton and Hutton East.
Good evening, Councillor Harry Hancock, Broad Oak, Penwitham.
Good evening, Councillor Barry, Sainsbury and Waltons. I apologise for throwing me back to you, so before we start.
Good evening, Councillor Colin Sharples, member for Earnshaw Bridge Ward.
Good evening, Councillor John Hesketh, Longton and Hutton West.
Good evening, Councillor Will Adams, and I represent Middlefirth and Penwitham.
Good evening, everybody. Likewise, sorry to turn our backs. Councillor Mary Green, Councillor for Moss Side and Midge Hall.
Good evening, Councillor James Flannery, Middlefirth, Penwitham.
Good evening, Catherine Lewis, one of the planning officers.
Good evening, Debbie Roberts, Planning Officer.
Good evening, Janice Crook, Planning Officer.
Good evening, Stephen Brown, Head of Development Management at the Council.
Right, okay, we have apologies for absence from Councillor Mal Donoghue, who has been substituted by Councillor Colin Sharples, Councillor Chris Lomax, who is being substituted by Councillor Kath Unsworth, and Councillor Caroline Moon, who is being substituted by Councillor Peter Molyneux. So thanks very much for that, folks. Right, do we have any declarations of interest? No, okay, I have a declaration of interest in item number 8, which is land opposite Ye Old Hob Inn. I declared a prejudicial interest at the last time this was presented to us, erroneously. So I have spoken to the monitoring officer. I will chair the meeting until it comes into committee, at which point I will ask Councillor James Flannery to substitute for myself while I go and stand outside for 10 minutes. Can I have a show of hands if that's acceptable, please? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Right, I have the minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of February. I have read the minutes and agree with them. Can I have a seconder to sign? Thank you very much for that. I will sign those while we hear appeal decisions from Stephen.
Yes, Chair, we've got 2 appeals to report and also a prosecution. The first one related to an appeal against the siting of a 20-metre monopole with a wraparound cabinet at the base set into the grass verge adjacent to the junction of Chain House Lane with the A582. This type of mast has permitted development rights, so we're only allowed to assess it on grounds of its siting and appearance. So we refused it on the advice of the County Council because of highway safety issues if the dualling of the A582 took place. However, it was concluded by the inspector that he didn't foresee any highway issues either now or if the dualling took place. Also, in respect to third-party concerns about the appearance, he said, given its simple design and location amongst other equipment and mature trees, the proposal would not appear as incongruous within the area and there would be no significant adverse visual impact. So he actually allowed that appeal. The second one related to land between 3 and 5 Royalty Lane, New Longton. The proposal was for the demolition of a garage and the erection of a dwelling. The main issues were the impact upon the character and appearance of the area and also the impact upon living conditions of neighbouring residents. The inspector felt it wouldn't impact on neighbouring property, but it did feel the proposal would appear contrived and cramped between the existing buildings. So he dismissed the appeal, so we won that one. And then finally to the prosecution, we've had a successful prosecution to report in respect of Section 215 untidy land legislation for a property 74 Station Road, New Longton. We tried every means possible since October 2019 to work with the occupants of the property to no avail. The hedges were excessively overgrown, hanging over the pavement. A boat was deposited in the front garden full of litter with an armchair in it. General refuse was strewn about the front garden along with car parts, boxes and tyres. There was also a dilapidated car present. So ultimately we had to issue a notice, and because they didn't comply with the notice, we took them to the magistrates' court, and 3 people in total were fined and costs in excess of £2,400. So I think that sends out a strong message to other people who are not inclined to act in these similar circumstances. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that, Stephen. Councillor Smith, are you going to tidy your garden up?
Sorry, yeah, thank you. Yeah, just want to speak on that, Chair, and I didn't realise it had gone so far, Stephen, but I'm really glad that it has. We've been trying to deal with that for several years now, and it's a long-winded, very, very difficult process for the council. Very, very difficult process, but we persevered, and thank you for the council for persevering and actually taking it to court. It has caused a huge amount of distress to their immediate neighbours, a huge amount of distress. It really has. I can't tell you how bad it is for some other people. So that's really good news. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Smith, for that. Just before we move on to item number 6 this evening, I'd just like to make you all aware item number 7 has been pulled. Okay, the applicant regrettably withdrew his application today because of the abuse that is being receiving from residents of that area. So just to let you all aware of that, item 7 will not be going ahead. All right, item number 6 this evening, the Windmill Hotel, Preston New Road, Mellowbrook. Catherine, if you'd like to present this item, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Members considered a report on this application at their meeting on the 29th of July 2021 and resolved to defer the application for the following reasons: to request that the County Council Highways to reconsider their comments, to further investigate the air quality implications of the development, and to consider the implications of the development in relation to the Localism Act. Before we go into those 3 bullet points, given the length of time since the application was presented to Planning Committee, and in case there are councillors who have changed from that first voting, we've decided to put the presentation on again so that there can be a full consideration of all the issues. So slide 1 demonstrates that the application site is located here in the area outlined in red, and it's on the corner of Branch Road and Preston New Road. It's currently occupied by a 2-storey public house, and the proposal is to demolish the building and replace with a petrol filling station and convenience food store. The next few slides just demonstrate the road surrounding the application site. So Preston New Road has over the years been the subject of a number of highway mitigation measures, including the Pelican Crossing that's located here, and the speed limit has been reduced so that approaching the village is for a 30-mile limit. The next slide just demonstrates a view from Branch Road looking towards the junction with Preston New Road. And again, this is a view looking up from Branch Road from the junction. And this slide just demonstrates the current car parking. It's taken from the position of the public house looking to the residential properties. The previous site layout ensured that the building was located for the petrol filling station. Sorry, I'll just get the... Oh, here it is. Sorry, it's come back. Sorry about that. Demonstrated the food store element to the rear of the site with the petrol filling canopies at the frontage. The inspector considered that the two reasons for refusal based on the formulaic design and also the impact on the amenity of the areas, he supported those reasons for refusal. A revised scheme was submitted, and this demonstrates the current layout. So to get over the issues associated with those raised by the inspector, the building was put in a more prominent location. It's an interesting site because you've got Preston New Road, Branch Road, and it's in a corner location, very prominent, and required some sensitive handling in terms of the design of the building. So it was been located at this part of the site, together with the pump and the canopy within the middle of the site. This revised site layout also demonstrates car parking and a fence line, a 2-metre acoustic fence located here, and together with the access and ingress within the site. So we've got from Preston New Road coming in here, and then there's a no exit from that point, and the in and out from this point here to leave the site onto Branch Road. This slide demonstrates the interesting position in terms of the current height of the building, with it being 2-storey in purple, and the current design of the new building in relation to the heights. And then this slide shows the elevations. So the applicant chose to provide a completely revised contemporary design using, after a number of amendments, more kind of natural materials. So we've got stone and a natural slate roof, and we've got the glazing aspects over here. There's some kind of acoustic fencing here, because behind that sits the access way into the delivery of the site. And then this slide just demonstrates a simple design for the canopies. It's uncluttered and considered to be more in keeping with that village style feel. And then finally, this is the visuals view from Preston New Road. So we can see what the building might look like using the natural stone and natural slate, the glazing and the entrance into the site from Preston New Road. And there you can see the height of the canopy in relation to the building with the residential properties further afield. So in relation to the issues that were raised by committee last time, to address the concerns from a highway perspective, a site visit was undertaken with officers from your council, meeting with Lancs County Council Highways and one of the ward councillors. And that was to provide the ward councillor the opportunity to demonstrate to LCC Highways, following that first bullet point that members requested them to reconsider their comments. In addition, further letters have been submitted by a highways consultant acting for the Samlesbury Residents Forum and Mellowbrook Matters. Lancs County Council Highways have responded to the queries, and at the request of the consultants, a meeting has also taken place with LCC Highways, Salisbury officers and the third-party highway consultant. Further information has been submitted from the applicant, including a road traffic audit and additional plans to demonstrate the tracking of the vehicles into the site from Preston New Road and to both access points on Branch Road. And these slides demonstrate P38, P2, the tracking plan going into Branch Road to overcome the concerns that have been raised. And again, this is P39 tracking plan, and also HGV, the tracking plan into the site. The HGV's tracking plan is there to demonstrate that I think concerns were raised, and quite rightly really, because Lancs County Council Highways have insisted that conditions are placed on for off-site highway works to ensure that white markings are amended to provide that right turn facility. A further correspondence has been received more recently. So since the agenda has been published, we've had 8 further letters of objection, together with a 40-page booklet entitled Windmill Business Opposition Booklet. And I believe the booklet has been circulated to members of the Planning Committee. And a further email has been received by Sheila Wright Planning, which raises a number of points and which are attached to the update sheet. So we've gone back to Lancs County Council Highways and the applicant to seek to address them. The first point relates to the air quality assessment and the concern that there's been no response from the Environmental Health Officer on this, and the point has simply not been addressed. I'll come to that as part of our second point that was raised by Planning Committee. The second point that's been raised is that the road safety audit, the concern by the third-party consultants is that only the tracking plan for the inbound access has been audited and not the scheme in its entirety. Lancs County Council Highways don't consider that Branch Road needs further assessment. And with regard to the next point, which concerns Appendix B, and it doesn't show the exit points from the site onto Branch Road, the applicant has advised that Lancs County Council Highways has confirmed that the manoeuvres can be performed without any safety issues. The request for the information as part of bullet point 4 to provide clear swept path drawings, these have been provided, and Lancs County Council Highways are satisfied with those. The fifth point relates to comments or amendments to the scheme design following the road safety audit and should be responded to in a response form. The County Council advised that the highway scheme that's related to in terms of a document GG119 relates to trunk roads and the motorway network. Hence, that seeks to address point 5. And then with regard to point 6 that's been raised, it states, we note that the local highway authority are maintaining their position that no further assessment work is required to the impacts of a 6-fold increase in traffic movements. And Lancs County Council have advised that it was accepted in the previous application, and during the appeal process, it didn't factor in as one of the concerns raised by the inspector, and therefore no further traffic assessment is required. On that basis, Lancs County Council have confirmed that subject to the proposed conditions, they are satisfied with the proposal. The second point relates to the investigations for the air quality implications of the development. Additional information has been submitted as referenced at section 2 in the report. Initially, the Environmental Health Officer was not satisfied with the methodology that had been used, and a further report was submitted on the 16th of February. The Environmental Health Officer has confirmed that this is acceptable and requires, as part of mitigation, extra car parking spaces to demonstrate the electrical vehicle points. With regard to the Localism Act, this is addressed in section 7 of the Planning Committee report. So what is different from the previous appeal decision? The inspector at paragraph 13 of that appeal decision notice advised that the original noise assessment appeared to focus upon deliveries and plant machinery, and not on the effect of the increased comings and goings of customers and the noise disturbance this would have on residents. To address this aspect, further information in terms of a noise impact technical note has been submitted, which references the human noise, for instance, doors slamming. And the Environmental Health Officer has considered and is satisfied that the proposal would not result in a significant adverse impact, and recommended hours of operation to be from 7 in the morning till 2300 hours at night. But notwithstanding that, the applicant has agreed to a further reduction in those hours. So even though the Environmental Health Officer is satisfied and has suggested hours, the applicant is prepared to reduce those further. So it will be 7 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock Monday to Friday, and 8 till 10 Sundays and bank holidays. The second ground related to the formulaic design as described by the inspector, and the slides demonstrate that this aspect has been addressed in terms of a more contemporary building that factors and considers the context of the site with regard to the corner of that between Branch Road and Preston New Road. It is acknowledged that this application, to conclude, has generated significant localised opposition to the proposed development, with over 400 responses received during a number of rounds of consultation. It's also acknowledged that in the planning balance, the inspector found that there would be social harm to the residents in terms of increased noise and disturbance as part of the first 2017 application. However, there are no objections from statutory consultees, despite officers putting forward the points made by the objectors. Further, the noise report addresses the human noise, which was one of the aspects that the planning inspector considered was missing from the first application. And the applicant has reduced the hours more than requested from the Environmental Health Officer. So on balance, the application is recommended for approval, subject to the conditions set out in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Catherine, for that very detailed report. Right, we'll have 5 registered speakers in objection to the application. Do we have Anne Wainwright, please? I think if you'd like to have your arms comfortable, we've seen your signs. You don't need to hold them up all the way through the meeting. If you press the button that says speak, and you have 4 minutes from now, okay?
Good evening. If this planning application is accepted, the present windmill garage, who have all the staff have come tonight, will close. James Hall brazenly quotes the fact in their planning application, but the present windmill garage will not be closing to assist the application, it will be forced to, leaving a manager and 5 staff out of work and another unusable, derelict, contaminated site in the village. If this application was refused tonight, the windmill garage could finally do the improvements they were planning before this all started, including EV charging points and increasing the floor space of the garage so that more food choices could be made for the residents. P9 petrol station on the A59 will remain, they hope, but expects to reduce staff. The other local businesses, such as Sanderson's Bakery, Huntley's Farm Shop, Mad Cow's Catering, Little's Butlers and Deli, Mellor Post Office, all family-run, long-standing business within the village, expect to lose income and probably have redundancies. There's a possibility of up to 20 staff and 3 businesses may fold. We also challenge the 30 jobs that are created in the planning application. Other similar-sized businesses in the area that we've approached, even a 24-hour garage, does not have 30 staff. The maximum is 15. Also, in the Ribble Valley area of the end of Blanche Road, a small retail outlet has been passed already. We're not sure what it's going to be, but once open, it will have significant effect on the local businesses, especially if it's another food centre or a takeaway. Therefore, a petrol station and shop will gravely affect other businesses. But we know this is not a planning consideration, but we feel it fails to adhere to the National Planning Framework and the Ribble Valley Local Plan. As stated by the appeal officer in a rejection in 2018, further similar outlets in a near vicinity is not a reason for a planning objection, but it does demonstrate that the application is contrary to SRBC's planning policy B1, since the amenities for local residents is totally being met. Mellowbrook already has enough amenities to provide health and well-being. Also, a development which should support community health and social well-being. But again, this proposal will negatively impact the living conditions of nearby residents, especially in light of the light pollution, noise disturbance, and the six-fold increase in traffic on Branch Road, which was one of the main reasons for it being rejected by the Secretary of State in 2018. The huge traffic increase is in contradiction to paragraph 84 of the National Planning Framework, which says that proposals should not have an unacceptable impact on local roads, and the huge traffic increase on Branch Road is sensitive to surroundings. South Ribble Local Plan states existing built-up areas, proposals for the reuse of the undeveloped and unused land and buildings will be permitted providing the development complies with the requirements for access, parking, keeps in character the building and does not affect the amenities of nearby residents. The National Planning Framework states that meets the needs of the present, takes care of the local circumstances, reflects character, needs and opportunities for the area and makes effective use of communities and helps the community's health and social well-being. Both of the letter requirements are better met by using this land for housing, as recently has been done by South Ribble Borough Council by turning a derelict pub into the first council houses built in South Ribble for a very long time, for over 20 years. Our small village businesses have managed to survive an awful pandemic, when the local businesses went out of their way to help their community. We want to help them now. This is just another nail in their coffin if this is passed. And finally, over 425 objections. We are very tired, but we've tried our best to fight this because we do not want this in our village. I believe one of the biggest South Ribble planning objections has ever been raised for this planning application. So it's obvious to the committee this development is not needed, not wanted by any of the residents or the businesses of Mellowbrook. And the local plan states residents should be listened to. As I said, we are very tired, but we will not give up. We will go to tribunal. We will go to the government. We are, and the residents of the local business of Mellowbrook request you deny this tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Ms. Wainwright. And you are right, business competition isn't a planning, it isn't a planning consideration, unfortunately. If it was, our decision would be a lot easier this evening. All right, do we have a Sheila Wright, please? Sheila Wright? Are you Sheila Wright? Are you all right? Are you speaking in place of Sheila Wright? So you're Michael Kitching. Would you like to come and address the committee?
Members of the Planning Committee, my name is Michael Kitching. I'm a director with SK Transport Planning, and I have 27 years in the public and private sector working on a range of development schemes across the UK. I'm going to take you to the key traffic and transport matter to demonstrate you were entirely correct in 2018 to refuse the planning application for the petrol filling station and convenience store at the Windmill Public House site. I will show you why you should adopt the same consistent and robust approach on what is fundamentally the same development proposals. I appreciate it was a brave decision in 2018 to go against your officer's recommendation, but you, the planning committee members, were correct in your decision making. You could see then this was an inappropriate development in this location, and it would have a harmful effect on the local residents' living conditions. You will have read the planning inspector's decision when she highlighted that the use would have a very negative impact, introducing a considerable amount of vehicle movements in and out of the site, with car doors slamming, stereo music playing, and the starting of vehicles. and the inspector confirmed these traffic movements and noise disturbance would be through the day and into the night, and the proposals would generate additional vehicle trips to and from the site. The elephant in the room is we probably wouldn't be sitting here today if the inspector had quantified what those additional traffic movements to and from the site would actually be, all discharging onto Branch Road. The magnitude of the increase in daily traffic visiting the site and discharging onto Branch Road is so high, it is impossible to form a defendable argument how this would not lead to an adverse impact that the planning inspector correctly concluded. And I'll take you to the applicant's transport consultant's report. This clearly states that the existing pub restaurant historically generated 303 daily vehicle movements. The development proposals are predicted to generate 1,966 vehicle movements on and off the site every day. This is an increase of 1,663 vehicle movements every single day travelling on and off the site. This will happen between 0700 hours and 10 o'clock at night during the week and 0800 to 10 o'clock at night at the weekends. To put this into context, the applicant's estimated increases in traffic visiting over the site is the equivalent of filling Preston's bus station car park 3 times over, every single day. Based on this 6-fold increase in traffic visiting the site, the lack of any technical assessment of the impacts of these additional movements to and from the site, as well as the clear decision from the planning inspectorate, it is at best remiss that your planning and highway officers continue to arrive at a position of no objection, and the development will not have an adverse impact. And in recent months, the irony of the Highway Authority telling the local residents group it's for them to demonstrate the development will have a severe impact has not been lost. It's not for them to ask the questions of the applicant, and nor do we need to. All that's needed is to take you to the facts and ask how an additional 1,663 vehicle movements, or 3 times the capacity of Preston bus station car park, onto Branch Road each and every day is not going to have an adverse impact on the living conditions of those local residents. This was the scenario the planning inspector considered, and this is why she dismissed the appeal for the petrol filling station in 2018. And you, the planning committee, were absolutely correct last time around to refuse the application, and the planning inspector supported your decision to do so. The local residents have faith that you will make the correct decision this time too. And I would say it would appear somewhat unfortunate that Lancashire County Council, as Highway Authority, are not here this evening to explain how they've arrived at their conclusions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks for your presentation, Michael. And you are right, they aren't our highways officers, they are LCCs, as Councillor Yates will be well aware. Okay, Sheila, right? Are you sure? Okay, if you'd like to make your presentation, you have 4 minutes.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to address the committee. I've been in planning a long time, and with that experience comes the ability to recognise when a proposed development is quite simply wrong. This is one of those cases. I want to address you on 2 key issues. The first is the fundamental importance of the planning inspector's 2018 decision to refuse planning permission and why it remains valid. The second is that you do not need objections from the EHO or LCC in order to sustain a refusal this time. The inspector's decision first. Consistency of decision making is an important principle in planning which has been upheld in case law. The inspector's decision is a key material consideration which would require very strong justification to be set aside. That justification would have to be that the application in front of you is so significantly different from the appeal proposal in its effects that it overcomes all the inspector's conclusions. Well, it isn't and it doesn't. The changes amount to no more than tinkering around the edges. Furthermore, We now have even more evidence of the harm of the development would cause through a 6-fold increase in traffic generation. I would just add there that also it's incorrect to say that the noise report reported that there was no amenity harm. It simply said that those things like car doors slamming and radios couldn't be objectively measured. In this context, there can be no justification for setting aside the inspector's decision. Such an action would, in my view, render any decision to approve the application very vulnerable to a legal court challenge. It is important to understand that the inspector's decision is not an isolated occurrence. There are numerous examples of appeal decisions where inspectors have refused comparable developments based on very similar reasons. I provided members with an example where a McDonald's drive-through, which would have been parachuted into a residential community, and the inspector refused it on amenity grounds. The parallels with the current proposal are strikingly obvious. The second point I want to stress is notwithstanding the lack of objection from the EHO and LCC, which given the information in front of them is regrettable to say the least, you have more than sufficient grounds to refuse the application and to successfully sustain that refusal if it goes to appeal. Not only do you have the inspector's decision, but you have robust core strategy and local plan policies and the sustainability provisions of NPPF. You may have heard in a medical context the doctrine of do no harm. This applies to planning as well. After all, the planning system is there to regulate development for the public benefit and not for private gain. The whole concept of sustainable development is based on not making life worse for local communities. Making life worse is precisely what this development would do. Rather, we should be making life better. I know it's not easy to go against your office's recommendation, but you did this in 2018 when your decision was endorsed in the strongest terms by the inspector. I urge you to do so again and make the correct decision. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, do we have a Graham Young, please?
Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Committee, thank you very much for this opportunity to speak on behalf of the Samlesbury and Curedale residents with regards to the conversion of the windmill into a garage and convenience store. I am the current chairman of Samlesbury and Curedale Parish Council. I do believe that the MP who I spoke to yesterday sent a letter opposing this today as well, questioning some of the reports. I don't know if anybody's received that. Nigel Evans said he sent it. He's copied me in as well. I'll make sure that that's got through. I always had respect in the planning regime held at South Ribble, and the fact that if a quote of any planning portal, an application was an obvious decision, it is dealt with and planned with delegation. That process, I feel, works. But with an application such as this, with the magnitude to change the whole aspect of a village, let alone the lives and residents living in and around the area, it seems like on this occasion, you've chosen to shine a spotlight in the dark and look around without seeing the rather bigger picture. To take one aspect of the planning application, I would agree that the applicant has made it quite policy compliant. But if you look slightly closer and take the collective of evidence brought forward by the members tonight, I'm sure you'll agree and realise that anything other than reiterating the results of the last appeal would be a travesty of justice. The safety of vehicles turning to the site while travelling along the A677 towards Preston leaves the drivers vulnerable in the centre of the road, where there isn't room for the safe turning with two HGVs travelling on either side. Notwithstanding that each and every one of you is a councillor voted for by residents in your own areas, all of which would like to think that you have the best interest at the centre of every decision you make, would probably have a wake-up call if this decision was passed tonight and this application was become known to them. and you disregarded the Secretary of State and chosen to rise roughshod over the health and well-being of the residents surrounding this site. The fact that another petrol filling station, as previously stated, isn't required in the area. The site is currently at Mr. Masters', an award-winning garage, would over time have to close within 6, maybe 12 months. And another waste of site or an eyesore, such as the windmill stands today, would be in its stead. This is once again a lifetime opportunity for yourselves as a planning committee to reject this application from Mr. James Hall, and help deliver affordable houses to the site, which would solve the local housing need, allow Mr. Masters to invest in his business and install new charging points, and extend his award-winning operation. This, as the other parts of the borough, feel like the people and the planning authority are looking and working together, delivering local needs. I've always been a positive person with a positive outlook, and always thought the problem has never been something I've ever brought into my daily life. I have always referred to it as a situation requiring a solution, and I feel there is a problem for yourselves, but it is also a situation requiring a solution. And in this case, I feel the solution will be affordable housing and local businesses to be able to allow to keep going on offering the outstanding service to our local people. Thank you very much for my time.
Okay, thanks, Graham. Do we have a Catherine Roberts, please?
Good evening, everyone.
Evening. Okay, you have 4 minutes.
I speak on behalf of the many residents of Mellor and Mellor who strongly object to these plans, but particularly those whose 22 homes border this proposed development and whose health and well-being will be severely impacted should this proposal be allowed to go ahead. My own property, as referred to by Catherine Lewis in her summary document, is number 15 Branch Road, directly next door to the proposed development, and as she highlights in her report, the side elevation of my home is within 11 metres of a proposed petrol filling station. Imagine that, 11 metres, and that's just the house. My garden is even closer. The indecision around these proposals, despite the repeated rejections on application and failure at appeal, have put my own plans around extending my own property on hold, causing me and my family a high degree of stress and anxiety. And I know I'm not on my own in this regard, pending a sensible, once and for all rejection of these proposals. Whilst the current derelict public house has been allowed to become an eyesore by James Hall, I suspect in a bid to encourage apathy amongst local people and wear us down into acceptance, I know I speak for all of those who object to these plans and whose properties directly overlook the old pub when I say, until the right development goes ahead, like affordable housing, we will happily continue to overlook a derelict pub rather than have our privacy and peace and quiet obliterated by a petrol filling station and shop. One of the many tweaks made by James Hall in their attempts to address the reason for the failure of this application at appeal is that they intend to install an acoustic fence alongside part of the boundary with the proposed petrol station in a bid to prevent noise disturbance reaching unacceptable levels. However, no amount of acoustic fencing can diminish the very real threat that this proposal poses, that it will invade our privacy, shatter the local environment and the relative peace and quiet of this village setting. And what about the light pollution? My kitchen, bathroom, master bedroom, entire front and back garden and patio area will be overlooked by those people visiting this site. Only 11 metres will separate my family from this incessant engine noise, car doors, vehicle headlights shining in, car stereos, petrol pumps, supermarket trolleys, the human noise associated with the general sounds of staff opening and closing up 7 days a week, 365 days of the year. Not to mention the guarantee of antisocial behaviour once the business closes for the day, a repetition of exactly what happened when the pub closed its doors in 2014. Multiply that by the other 22 properties and all of their occupants. This impacts us and our village environment severely and unacceptably. The noise and light pollution will pervade into our personal and private family space, adversely affecting our health and well-being. Noise impact assessments have been carried out by James Hall representatives at such a time as not to be the peak times of any day. I ask you, is that deliberate? I suspect so. All of us are acutely aware of the serious health concerns, both mental and physical, and the risks associated with living in proximity of such a site. There's a stark difference between an individual making a choice to buy a house near to an existing petrol station to actually having a home and having one forced upon you. Ask yourselves this question, hand on heart. Would any of you want to, or want your family members to live next door to or overlook a proposal of this size and this site? If you approve this development, you're resigning many of your South Ribble residents to this fate, an overwhelming majority of whom, along with our Ribble Valley neighbours, who do not want this development, forcing already established businesses to perhaps close and residents of the two boroughs to lose livelihoods. So, ladies and gentlemen, I beseech you all now, as councillors of South Ribble Borough Council, consider the very real impacts of the noise, the light, the environmental pollution concerns held by your residents and reject this application on our behalf once and for all. Thank you.
Okay, that's the 5 objectors. We have someone wanting to speak in support of the application, and Mr. Dave Wallbank. Okay, just like the objectors, you have 4 minutes, okay?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair, members. My name is David Wallbank. I'm a transport and highways consultant to James Hall, who are the applicant for the proposed development. Over recent years, I've undertaken numerous assessments, reports, technical notes, appraising the potential impact of the proposals in highway terms. These documents are summarised in your planning officer's report, which is before you. I know that Mr. Kitching, as the highway consultant to the residents, does not raise highway safety or operational concerns, just that the increased traffic will result in amenity issues. Notwithstanding this, I would like to briefly pick up on one of the points raised. This relates to the to clarification on the 6-fold increase in vehicle movements. It is important to note that this is daily movements to and from the sites when compared to the previous pub use. There will not be a 6-fold increase in total vehicle movements on either Branch Road or Preston New Road. Moreover, the majority of these movements will be passing the site along Branch Road or Preston New Road in any event. Vehicles will simply turn into and out of the site. This is the accepted nature of PFS, petrol filling station, and convenience store sites, with very few customers diverting to visit such sites, with the majority of trips being passed by. Consequently, the number of new trips generated is very small, usually less than 10%. And that is as set out in the transport statement, which has been accepted by Lancashire County Council as a highway authority, as it is with other planning authorities and highway authorities across the country. So turning to the proposals themselves, on behalf of the council, your planning officer has quite rightly consulted Lancashire County Council, who as the highway authority are responsible for the management and maintenance of this local highway network. Consequently, any response or assessment that they provide is truly impartial and unbiased. Mr. Hancock, who is an experienced highway engineer, has confirmed in his 3 responses that a petrol filling station and convenience food store at this site is acceptable from a highways perspective, and LCC Highways have no objection to the application. In addition to this, I note that subsequent reviews and responses to Mr. Kitchen's and the residents' submissions were undertaken by Mr. David Allen, who is one of the most experienced highway engineers at the county. and has certainly been ever present in the 30 years that I've been working in this field, in the area. I'd like to quote some of Mr. Allen's comments, if I may. The latest plan has been amended to improve site access, internal manoeuvres. Lancashire County Council is satisfied that safe and suitable access to the site can be achieved for all users, and it will be difficult to demonstrate that the residual cumulative impacts of the proposal on the road network would be severe to substantiate any objection to accord with MPPF. Now, this is a view shared by your planning officer, this committee at the last planning application, and the planning inspector. In fact, anyone who has independently and impartially assessed the proposals in terms of highways have, without exception, reached the same conclusion. There are no reasonable or justifiable highways grounds why the proposed development should not be granted planning consent. I would therefore respectfully urge you to follow the evidence and the advice of your impartial advisors and reach this conclusion again. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, thanks, Mr. Wallbank. Just to let the committee and everyone here present, through the planning officer, I asked LCC to attend this evening to put forward why they think it's acceptable, and they haven't turned up, so unfortunately, there's not a lot we can do about that. All right, both ward councillors are on committee this evening, so I'll not be inviting them to speak. Do we have Deborah Smith, the agent, with us this evening? Okay, Deborah, once again, you have 4 minutes like everyone else, okay? Thank you.
Chair. I'm a planning consultant to James Hall, working at Smith & Love Planning Consultants. I have 25 years experience as a public and private sector planner. I'd like to say that we've not tinkered with this application. This application is very different from the appeal. The evidence submitted has demonstrated that there are no reasons to refuse the application on any grounds. There is no reason to refuse the application on highway grounds, as Mr. Wallbank has just explained. There are no grounds to refuse the application as a result of impact on residential amenity. This application addresses concerns raised by the inspector, but those concerns were based on assumptions, not evidence. Had the inspector raised concerns based on evidence, then my client would not have submitted a further planning application, because that would have been my advice to them not to even bother in the first place. The application submission considers plant noise, human noise and delivery noise, covering all of the concerns raised by the inspector. My client's acoustic consultant and 2 South Ribble environmental health officers have all concluded that with the appropriate mitigation that the PFS can operate without significant adverse impact on residential amenity. Whilst there will be activity associated with the site, as is the case with the current lawful use of the site as a pub could operate on the site again, most probably with an external seating area or a marquee, as is common with pubs as a result of COVID restrictions. This would be against the backdrop of the A677, which itself generates background noise. To further mitigate noise impact, the store will only open from 7 till 10 most days, and deliveries will be restricted to 7 till 9 p.m. That's 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. The delivery area is screened, and acoustic fencing further limits noise impact. Low-level lighting details will be submitted via condition. As a result, it is the professional view of the council's EHO that there is sufficient evidence to address the concerns raised by the inspector. There are no grounds to refuse the application on air quality. A second EHO looked at the proposals and recently requested an emission assessment. This report was submitted, and a further EV charging point has been added to the proposal. So to sum up, if we consider the reasons why the appeal was dismissed, design and perceived impact on residential amenity and not highways impact, clearly the design is 100% improvement on the design that the inspector considered and would significantly enhance the site. It is not bland, and it is a bespoke design solution for the site. I would suggest that there are no reasons for refusal on design grounds. In terms of residential amenity, all aspects of the development have been thoroughly assessed, and based on the evidence submitted, there are no grounds to refuse the application. There are no technical objections from your officers or other statutory consultees. They recognise that the evidence submitted to support the proposal is adequate and robust. For these reasons, the application should be supported in line with your officer's professional recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your presentation, Deborah. Okay, that's everyone who's wanted to present this evening. I am now going to open up to committee and Councillor Yates.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the residents, local residents from other areas spoke very well tonight, as they did the last one. And I think the committee should look at it. In 2008, we did reject this application, and I will say the same application, and it was upheld by the inspector from the government inspector on appeal. So, Mr. Chairman, my key points to this application are: the inspector's appeal decision remains a matter of consideration that should underpin the decision of the current application. There have been no changes in circumstances which would invalidate the inspector's conclusions. The inspector said the proposal would have an unacceptable adverse effect upon the character and appearance of the area. The proposal would be contrary to policies 17 of the Central Lancashire Core Strategy, Local Development Framework 2012, and policies G17 and B1 of the South Ribble Local Plan 2012-26 and July 2015 Local Plan. The inspector's finding in relation to the harmful impacts on character and appearance and living conditions are based on matters of principle. In essence, the petrol station and the convenience store use is fundamentally unsuited for this location within the village. The inspector said in her report, on balance, the harm I have found will be considerably outweigh the benefits of the proposal. The proposal would introduce a considerable amount of vehicle movements in and out of development sites with associated activities from customers and noise from car doors slamming, stereo music, starting of vehicles. This will be throughout the day and into the night. With early morning and late night opening hours, furthermore, given to the size of the convenience store and associated parking space, it is likely there will be an additional trips associated with this use. It is likely that there would be an increased activity on the site during peak hours, and this could lead to increased queuing on Branch Road, given the exit and for the site is only available from Branch Road. There will be additional traffic noise and disturbance for nearby residents. That's in the inspector's report. Mr. Chairman, the design changes to the proposal amount to nothing more than window dressing. They cannot make an unacceptable development acceptable. In relation to the impact of the proposed development on living conditions, the inspector concluded that despite the assessments provided by the applicant, it is my judgment that there will be increased noise, traffic and activity from the site, both in terms of petrol filling station and convenience store. The effect of the proposal would be over a long period of the day, every day, without respite. This will routinely alter the sound environment experienced by surrounding neighbouring residents to their deterrent. The inspector further stated, according to cumulative activities would lead to disturbance of the neighbourhood dwellings and fail to provide a high standard of amenities for the existing users. This would adversely and harmfully affect the living conditions contrary to policy 17 of the core strategy of the local plan and policies G17 B1 of the South Ribble local plan, which seek to endorse developments do not have a detrimental adverse impact on neighbouring properties. Committee. The Localism Act makes it clear that it is proper for councillors to for the councillors to play an active part in local decision and help them to represent their residents to enrich local democracy and debate. People should be able to elect their councillors with confidence in the knowledge that they will be able to act on issues they care about and have campaigned on. The overall effect of the Localism Act are: 1. Gives local authorities everywhere the formal legal ability and greater confidence to get on with the job of responding what local people want. 2. Place significant more influence in the hands of local people over issues that make a big difference to their lives. 3. Reduce red tape, making it easier for the authorities to get on with the job of working with local people to draw up a vision for their area's future. Committee, we must listen and work with our residents, not against them. Mr. Chairman, I move refusal of this application for all the reasons given above and the Inspector's Appeal report, as this application is contrary to policies 17 of the core strategy and policies G17 and B1 of the South Ribble local plan, which seeks to ensure new developments do not have a detrimental or adverse impact on neighbouring properties. I move, Chair.
Just for clarity, we did refuse this application in 2018, didn't we? But this is obviously a different application, different layout, etc. Right, thanks for that. Okay, so Councillor Yates has proposed refusal. Councillor Molyneux, did you want to come in?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I too don't think that this application has made much difference from the last one that was refused. It doesn't seem to have changed at all. I'm not happy about the vehicle movements. There's going to be a lot more movements going backwards and forwards. One thing that hasn't or doesn't seem to have been mentioned is the on the site just across the road from there. We are going to start to get a lot more movements when the new cyber centre takes place in the not too distant future. That will make a big difference to traffic movements and to air quality. And I think it really needs to be, and I must admit I'm disappointed that the county hasn't come tonight to explain their reasons, which from my point of view seems very, very poor. You know, that this means a lot to local residents and to the planning committee. We should be well aware of the main reasons. They've not really come to just show that. As I said, it doesn't mention the cyber centre, it doesn't mention the extreme load of traffic that will come from that. And I'm sure the air quality will get a lot worse because of that. It's obvious to us all this evening that residents, local residents here, do not want this application. And as they've already said, it's not needed and it's not wanted. And I must admit, I agree with those residents. There isn't enough reasons for me in this application to justify a new build, a new garage in that particular area. And it's for that reason tonight that I would be looking to vote for refusal. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Molyneux. I'm surprised that you're surprised because you were county councillor at one time and you know how county work. They let us down all the time. Our hands are tied, but there you go. Councillor Mrs Green.
Sorry, Chair, can I just come back to that?
If you want.
Not when I was a county councillor.
Oh, we have a comedian, Mrs Green.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've looked at the application, I've read all the notes, I've read the very, very expansive application that the residents have sent in, and I thank them for that because that was very, very helpful. It was very good, and it sort of reflects the feeling of everyone because that wouldn't have been 2 minutes of a job to write that report. So, you know, I think that's very good. Yes, the site needs tidying up. It does look a mess. It does need something doing with it. But whether you need another petrol station, when it appears in the report that there's numerous petrol stations and convenience stores and everything, is not tenable, really. The increased vehicle amount that's been stated isn't good, and all the parish councillors and the residents who have to live there and suffer with this have stated very strongly their feelings. I've not heard anything tonight that would change my mind and the way that I voted in 2018, because I was on this planning committee then, and I recall it, and we went for refusal. So I would like to join with my colleagues on the committee for refusal. Whether Councillor Molyneux seconded it, but if he hasn't, I'll do it. Otherwise, I'll just go for refusal. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Green. Yeah, Councillor Molyneux has seconded refusal. Councillor Smith.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. There are several things here. I mean, I did have the opportunity to speak to planning officers yesterday because I was a bit, I won't say confused about some of the figures, but I needed clarification of some of the figures with regard to these vehicle movements, which I have to say I'm seriously concerned about. And I think the question was to the planning officers which figures had been. It's very distracting at the back. Do you mind dropping those down? Because I'm trying to concentrate on what I'm saying, and it really isn't helping. Thank you. Now I've lost my train of thought now. So maybe I should just vote for it, but just being facetious. But this is a serious issue, and I really wanted to know on the basis of which. Number of traffic movements that the figures were based on. If environmental health indeed had been working on 300 vehicles or 500 vehicles, it would have been completely different than the 2,000 and odd vehicles that are actually going through there on a daily basis. I mean, that's absolutely huge. It is huge. And there's only one access point, and that's onto Branch Road. Now I have been down there on several occasions, and it is very, very busy. So for me, those vehicle movements are significant. They're a significant consideration in whether this planning application is voted for or against. The other thing that is significant, as far as I can see, is, and the agent says, residential amenity, there are no grounds for refusal. I have to say, that's a matter of opinion. Her opinion is that. My opinion is completely different, I have to say. With something 2,000 vehicles a day moving 10 metres past your house, and the seclusion of your back garden. Residential amenity is being seriously affected here, I would say, and maybe not for other residents as well as the particular resident that came up with those. I have to say that Mr. Young, who said thought it was policy compliant, probably didn't help, but and the pub could operate again. There's various things there, but on the basis of that, I'm certainly erring on the side of refusal. We'll wait and see what other members have to say. I've come nothing prepared. I wanted to listen to what everybody was saying this evening before I actually make up my mind. The pub is a mess. There's no doubt about that. It looks a mess. It doesn't add anything to the local community or the local area. And with regard to putting houses on it, that's not for us to say what goes on it. It's for us to say what doesn't go on it at this planning meeting. So a lot of the evidence or information that's been put forward, I suppose, in some ways is a bit irrelevant to this committee. I think what is relevant in there is the impact it could have on the other businesses in the area. And I think that's really a material consideration in the sense of, is it a sustainable development? Can it be a sustainable development if it's putting other businesses at risk? I would suggest it probably isn't, but that's me for the time being, Chair. So I'll just listen to what the debate is.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Smith. Catherine, would you like to give Councillor Smith the figures for the traffic movement?
Thank you, Chair. I can appreciate Councillor Smith would be confused because there is so much technical information both within the report and that's been presented by the residents. But if I could draw your attention to page 18 of the committee report. And on the second paragraph down, it explains where those traffic movements have come from in terms of the transport assessment. It then talks on later on under the paragraph that says, however, and in that paragraph there, the environmental health officer explains that those movements have been considered. And I did manage to speak to him today in response to your question that you raised yesterday to confirm or otherwise, was he still satisfied with those figures at that high level that's quoted in the transport assessment in terms of any impact on noise or even the air quality. And as far as he's concerned, there isn't a significant adverse effect, which is the statutory phrase that's used, which is used by the Environmental Health Department. So on that basis, there is no reason for the Environmental Health Officer to be recommending refusal.
Okay, thanks, Catherine.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm not sure whether I agree with the Environmental Health Officer, but anyway, we'll see. Thank you.
He's one of the consultees, isn't he? And there's not a lot we can do about that. Do we have anybody else? Yeah, we've seen it. We've seen your sign. Council, yeah, let's heckle him, please. Councillor Flannery.
Thank you, Chair. Okay. When something like this comes to this committee, I can assure all the people who have turned up tonight, whose lives it is affecting, that every consideration is given. And you'll hear, even if you stay afterwards, other plan applications, which we have an objective role. Apolitical, we're not here for who we represent in terms of our parties, but we're here as elected representatives. Before I make my comments, I just want to make a point back to a comment which was made here before about some sort of inference about when you get elected, who you got to be careful, watch out. I don't think that's appropriate because everyone around this table is very fair-minded. Let me just deal with the issues of deferment, because I think I might be, if I wasn't the person who did defer, I think I seconded it. Highways, once again, no representation. Approval. I repeat myself here. We need the tools to help you when we have situations like this. And when LCC Highways and the people involved in LCC say it's okay, which they have done, it makes it very, very difficult for us to come up with another reason or a reason to support what you want. Secondly, air quality. We've also had, this is now acceptable. how air quality is acceptable with the increase in vehicles to the size which we've heard, I'll never know. But apparently that's what we're being told. The Localism Act, it's being classed as acceptable. But I also agree, and I think you'll find from, if you look at our track record in terms of what we say and how we do it, residents come first. I've been known to say before, it's very, very difficult when you're in this position, when you've got to stick within statutory compliance. But when I hear the voice of the residents, like I've heard tonight and on other occasions, you have to sit up and listen. The other statutory consultees, no objections. Wow, it's incredible. Your local MP, I've heard he sent a letter. Well, could you let him know next time? Could you get the letter in a bill early so we can all see what he's got to say rather than say it on the day of the actual applications being heard? In conclusion, and here's my comments for you because you did speak well and you spoke passionately. And Catherine, your report's very good. It's excellent, and you're always excellent in terms of what you present. And I visited this site twice this week. I don't know if anyone's seen me. I went to the Bakers, which is very good as well. Some applications, unfortunately, just don't fit some areas. And I'm going to reserve my view for other members of what they're going to say. But this is one of them. As Phil said before, there's one road in, one road out. It is a village environment. There's precedent here in other areas around the borough, and you can't refuse it because of all the reasons why we're being told. But actually, if you go and stand on that corner and walk around that site, this is one of those, and I was thinking, because we always have an open mind when we come here, this just doesn't fit this area. And I'm just being, I'm trying to be objective, but I'm actually being a bit of subjectivity there. It just doesn't seem to fit. It seems incongruous with what's being proposed against what the environment's like. And let us assure you, and I speak probably on behalf of everyone here, your voice is heard tonight, and we always listen to what you've got to say. Thank you.
As eloquent as always, Councillor Flannery. Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Chair. I think I've used this quote a few times at this committee in terms of having our hands tied behind our back, purely on the basis of Lancashire County highways. In terms of in the report, and thank you, Catherine, for such a comprehensive one, I've actually not seen as much dialogue from LCC Highways before in my few years on the committee. I'm disappointed that we've got the chairman of Lancashire County Council, even on the committee and as a local councillor, and we still can't get LCC Highways to the meeting. So I don't think we've got much hope moving forward. It's a really difficult one, this, because as I say, hands tied behind my back really is the phrase, because the report states that there's no statutory consultee who opposes this. And obviously we've heard tonight the passion that the residents have who are against it, and you know, they know the area much better than I do, and much better than anyone else on the committee. So it is a real tough one, because if LCC had turned around and said they have concerns, then that would be a very easy decision for me. One thing I want to query is the sweat path analysis, and why there isn't one, or certainly whether I've missed it or not, isn't one included in the report. As I say, it's a difficult one for me. I always listen to the residents, and that was always at the forefront of my decision making. But we need some assistance from the statutory consultees in terms of supporting our judgment. So can I get an answer on the sweat path analysis? Is that okay? Thank you.
Catherine, if you will, please.
Thank you, Chair. On page 17 of the committee report, The applicant did provide additional vehicle traffic drawings, which are set out there and which are demonstrated on the slides, which LCC Highways, when comments have been made by the residents, have gone back to the applicant and asked, you need to demonstrate X, Y and Z, which are those 3 plans, and LCC Highways are satisfied with those plans, and if they wanted to have asked for further information to demonstrate that they had concerns, they would have done that as part of their consultation dialogue with the applicant. They have to be satisfied as the highway authority that the site works, and they are consistently assuring us with all the responses that there are no grounds from a highway perspective to recommend refusal.
Okay, Councillor Adams. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, we have to rely on LCC Highways, don't we? So I'm still up in the air, Chair, in terms of what decision I will make on this, because ultimately, whatever decision we make tonight, it could end up in the courts, and then, we have to factor that in as well. So I'll reserve my right to speak for later. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, of course, you always do, Councillor Adams. Stephen wants to come in on this one.
Can I just make a point of clarity here? County Highways have looked at the highway in terms of the technical aspect of the highway. It's not their role to look at any amenity impact from the use of the highway. So it is within your gift, if you're so minded, to refuse it on the basis of issues arising from that extra highway activity and extra activity within the site. So just to differentiate between the two things, a technical assessment as opposed to an amenity assessment resulting from that activity, and that's your decision to make. Thanks.
Thanks for your help, Stephen. Always gratified for your help and expertise. Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I'd like to thank Catherine for the report. I can certainly understand how she's come to the conclusion that she has. And I've not quite heard. And frankly, I agree. There's many reasons that this should be passed based on the regulations, so on that are in place. And I can absolutely understand where she's coming from that perspective. Again, the Localism Act has been referred to within this report and by Councillor Yates, but I don't think they're necessarily contradictory positions, despite the fact that it comes to different conclusions. I think the Localism Act allows for both positions to potentially be arrived at. So it's almost an opinion at that point, basically. Obviously the residents again have spoken very passionately and very eloquently this evening, and I can't help but be particularly impressed at the fact that there was no heckling before, prior or during when the representatives of James Hall spoke as well, which isn't always the case at committee. And when passions are so high, I can understand the degree of heckling, and I thought that was particularly impressive how everyone managed to stay calm and reasonable throughout this debate. It speaks well for the people of Mellor-Brook, frankly. But obviously Councillor Yates has provided a number of reasons that this can potentially be refused on. And oddly, as Stephen was mentioning the traffic aspect as far as amenity goes, I was literally writing that down on my piece of paper, so I don't need to cover that point. So I think at the moment I'm in the looking at refusal, to be honest with you. So thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Watson. I think they're saving the heckling if the decision goes against them. I have Councillor Yates wanting to come back in. Then I have Councillor Phil Smith wants to come back in. And I'm then going to wind up the debate if we don't have any other proposals. Councillor Yates.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As it's been pointed out, and if residents don't know, I am the chairman of Lancashire County Council. And I am the county councillor for the area, along with Alan Schofield, that covers the River Valley side of Branch Road. Lancashire County Council has introduced a weight restriction of 7.5 tonnes and a narrowing of Branch Road at this point on the A677. This restricts movements onto Branch Road and standing traffic exiting Branch Road onto A677 will result in increased pollution in this residential area. So not only Lancashire County Council, am I saying, have got it wrong, our environmental department has got it wrong as well, because with the numbers of traffic coming out here, we're bound to get standing traffic there all the time. Now, it's been said that there's no representation from Lancashire County Council, or maybe they know that I do not mince my words, and they haven't come on because of that. So we'll leave it at that, Chairman. Thank you.
So LCC aren't here because they're scared of your ward councillor. Councillor Smith, how do you put up with him?
It's not easy, I have to say. It's not easy. I'm going to vote against this, Chair. For the reasons I stated before, I think the residential amenity is a significant impact. 2,000 vehicles a day going through the site, all coming out on Branch Road because it can't go anywhere else. That's a huge impact on residential amenity. I mean, we've refused planning applications before when something's been 10 metres from somebody's back window and they're looking out of a house. And this just is appalling, to be quite honest. That amount of traffic, the amenity, the value that will be affected is huge. So that's a big one for me. And also, and Councillor Yates has mentioned with the conclusion of the planning inspector, and for me, that conclusion is still relevant. And it was mentioned by one of the residents, harm. Now, harm is massive in planning terms. And for those that have been around on planning for some while and sat through several 3 and 4 days of planning hearings and appeals and goodness knows what else, planning appeals are won and lost on harm. The planning inspector quite rightly has said harm there. And I think there's significant harm in this application, significant harm to the amenity of the residents living in the area. So for all those reasons, plus maybe some other ones that Councillor Yates has mentioned, but for those specifically, I will be voting against this application.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Smith. Councillor Hesketh.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. County Highways don't make the decision tonight, neither do the environmental health. We've had good things put forward this evening for us to listen to from the locals, and we're the ones that make the decision. And I go along with most of the proposals of refusal, Mr. Chairman, so that would be my way of voting. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Hesketh. This is why you have a planning committee. Okay, do we have anyone wanting to propose approval? Councillor Hancock.
Can I first of all thank the residents for coming and speaking here tonight? I'm going to keep it very short and simple. First of all, I don't think that this development is suitable for this site. And there's bound to be an increase in traffic. If there's 1,666 extra vehicles coming onto the road, there's certainly going to be problems on Branch Road. And there's certainly going to be an increase in the noise and pollution. So for these reasons, I'm going to vote against. Thank you.
Do we have any committee members who want to vote in favour of the application? You do, but you're too scared. Catherine, would you like to add any more points before obviously we've had a proposal? Yes, Stephen, it's on highways amenity, I presume.
Well, just based on the debate I've heard, I've put a potential reason for refusal. So if I can read that out before you go to the vote. But the proposal will lead to increased disturbance and have a detrimental impact on neighbouring amenity in the locality as a result of the increased activity both within the site and in the highway. The proposal is therefore contrary to Policy 17 of the Central Lancashire Core Strategy and Policies B1 and G17 of the South Ribble Local Plan 2012 to 26. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Stephen. So let's go to the vote. This is the votes for Councillor Flannery.
I just confirm we are voting for refusal.
We are voting against approval.
Yes.
For refusal.
This is very important.
Well, if you're voting against approval, you're voting for refusal.
Yeah. So Councillor Yates has proposed refusal. So we're voting for refusal.
We're voting for Councillor Yates.
Yes. Okay. That's clear. Just want to make sure that's
okay.
Chair.
Yes, Alex. Well, we'll take the officer's reasons, if that's all right with you.
Yes.
Right, so we're going to go to the vote. It's electronic, and this is to refuse the application against our officer's advice. Yeah. Okay, so this is for refusal. Okay, we've listened. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks. That's the end of this item on the agenda. If you can leave without clapping, and I think the neighbours will be very happy, and I hope you're happy with the decision. Okay, we're having a 5-minute adjournment, ladies and gentlemen. Right, okay, ladies and gentlemen. Councillor Yates, calling Councillor Yates. Okay, we're moving on now to item number 8 on tonight's agenda because item 7's been pulled, thankfully. Item 8 is land opposite the old Bobbin at Bamber Bridge, and Debbie, if you'd like to present this item, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is not going to be half as exciting as the last one. Okay, the site itself is a piece of land on the junction of Church Road and Station Road's Bamber Bridge. We've got the old Bobbin on the right-hand side, on the east. On the west is some open green space, both separated by lesser highway, I should say. And we've got to the north is Station Road. It's within Church Road Conservation Area, and the site itself slightly raised on all sides. It's already landscaped, and there are paths and trees in the middle, and the trees would all be retained and protected by condition. An application for a scheme to commemorate the Battle of Bamber Bridge was deferred in November 21. So that the applicant could reconsider the design and go out to public consultation with a series of different designs. That's happened. There are 3 options. They all commemorate the Battle of Bamber Bridge and the wherewithals in your report, but the 3 options which went to Facebook, local social media, and via the Citizen Space, which is a digital consultation platform, I believe, were, the first one was for plinths around a landscape garden with a central feature. We had a second one which was a rockery, same sort of thing but without any structure, and the third one is a lectern, and that was the preferred option and of the 19 responses. It's also gone through full public consultation as part of this application too. Just a close-up of the preferred option, there will be new paths, dementia-friendly landscaping, so sensory landscaping, and the benches and bins will be relocated to a more appropriate location. Trees, as I said, will be retained and protected during construction and afterwards by condition. Overall, it's a quietly dignified scheme. The big sculpture that was proposed last time has been taken off, so it's a lot more subtle. And just the site layout. The lectern will go to the centre. We've got not so much new paths, but more connected paths, bins and benches to either side, and landscaping as well. Oh, beg your pardon. We've had one letter of support to the original scheme, which supported the scheme but had concerns about the trees, and as I've said, they will be protected. We've also had one letter of objection to the design. That letter of objection also says that the objector's preferred alternative hasn't been included in public consultation. Now, I need to stress the applicant has supplied and paid for a planning application, and he deserves a decision. Whether that's a yes or a no is up to you, but he deserves a decision on the proposal that he's put forward, and that's for a lectern with a landscape garden. What can't happen is that a third party uses this as a platform to slide in their own scheme, their own design. If they wish to apply for that scheme, they're more than welcome to do that on their own application and with their own ownership certificates and plans and the like. This isn't a platform for a third party to hijack. We've had no statutory objections, I beg your pardon, and planning permission should be granted subject to the imposition of conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Debbie, thanks for that. Thanks for your presentation, very detailed. Before I do bring in an objector, just for clarity, if LCC didn't own this land, we wouldn't need planning permission on this, would we? Okay, are you all clear with that, committee? Yeah. All right, do we have a Mr. Derek Rogerson wishing to speak in objection to the application? Okay, Mr. Rogerson, if you press the speak button and you have 4 minutes to make your presentations, okay?
So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, I would like to applaud South Ribble Borough Council for agreeing to erect a memorial to the 1943 Battle of Bamber Bridge. It is certainly long overdue. I have no doubt that it will be welcomed by the residents of Bamber Bridge and all who come to visit it in the future. No doubt it will be in its position in the proposed community garden for many years to come. It is therefore important that it truly reflects the events of that infamous day in June 1943. Unfortunately, I and many other local residents are of the opinion that it doesn't quite make it. We accept that although the account of what happened on that fateful night is accurate, it lacks one vital ingredient, an epitaph. An epitaph containing the important lesson to be learnt from this terrible tragedy, when bigotry and racism rule the day. We believe that all who visit the memorial and read such an epitaph will then depart with a meaningful message in their hearts regarding the consequences of those unacceptable twin prejudices. It also contains a rather jolly scene of 4 black US military service people. The scene that was apparently shot in Bristol. What on earth is this to do with what happened in Bamber Bridge? Is the question on many people's lips. For something a little more significant, would it not be more appropriate to display the terrific artwork of local artist Tom Cookson, which depicts a black soldier and a white MP with a background of Station Road, where it all happened. The earlier pedestal design submitted by a team of local residents, which initially was received favourably by local councillors some time ago, contained all the necessary ingredients for a memorial that truly reflects all that happened on that fateful day. Now, I'm not saying that it should take precedence over the design now being presented to the planning department, but what I am saying, in the strongest possible terms, is that it should have at least been considered when the public consultation was made in January. For whatever reason, it was not, and only the design as submitted by outside agencies was considered suitable. Not a great advert for democracy or the abrupt dismissal of the combined efforts in design as submitted by local residents. However, in the spirit of compromise, I believe that there is a design that would be acceptable to all parties. It incorporates the best of all the design features, including the one now being submitted by the council. But it also contains Tom Cookson's artwork, and most importantly, a meaningful epitaph. As the lectern appears to be the favoured option on which to display the design, this proposed compromise would sit very well on the lectern. I put it to the meeting that this compromise design be considered as the blueprint for the memorial. I have a copy of that compromise design, which shows the original design now being offered, plus the more meaningful artwork, and plus a very meaningful epitaph. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Rogerson. Debbie, did you want to come back on some points there?
Yeah, just one very small point. The applicants made it been very clear they don't want a memorial. It's a commemoration of the Battle of Bamber Bridge. It's a descriptive lectern, more of an educational piece. It's not a memorial. It's not a gravestone or the type of thing we would go to on, a cenotaph type thing. Sorry, thanks, Stephen. it is a commemorative piece rather than a memorial, so that's why there is no epitaph on there. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that, Debbie. Okay, thanks, Mr. Rogerson. Do we have John Rainford wishing to speak on the application? Good evening, John.
Hello.
Okay, you have 4 minutes.
I don't think I'll need 4 minutes, but so a few months ago I was here, and obviously I objected to the design and aesthetic of the previous application. I'm really happy that it was listened to, that you made the appropriate changes, that you popped it back out to consultation, that we were allowed to respond on that. The responses from the consultation fed through to the final design, and I think it is much more suited to the location, more sympathetic, and I'm glad you followed the process, and I don't have any objection to it. That's it.
Short and sweet, just how we like it. Thanks very much. Thanks, John. Right, at this juncture, I will be leaving the meeting. Councillor Flannery, if you would like to take the chair, you'll probably be much more success than I have.
Anything for you, Caleb. Okay, thanks everyone. I'm now going to bring this one to committee, and the first person is indicated to speak is Councillor Will Adams. Will.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you to John and Mr. Rogerson. For me, it's quite a straightforward one. I think last time we listened to the concerns of residents, and quite right, it went back out to consultation and they've been able to have their say. I do have some sympathy with Mr. Rogerson, but unfortunately, you're never ever going to please everyone with things like this. I do agree with him that it's great that we have some kind of, not memorial to it, but we certainly something there to recognise its impact and the history that it has, not just on Bamber Bridge, but on all of South Ribble, and that's something we can be proud of. So I think I would like to propose approval for this, Chair, and that's it. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for that, Councillor Adams. Councillor Barry Yates.
Thank you, Chair. This has been going on for a long time. I can remember Mr. Rogerson fetching this forward because I'm county councillor for the area, and the local council is meeting with him in the Bobbin, looking at the application, and his design that he put forward was very good, but it wasn't just Derek's design, it was the residents' design of Bamber Bridge. So that it worries me that yet again we're missing out. We're not listening to local residents. It's all right saying it's gone on Bamber Bridge Facebook and it's gone out on this Twitter and that Twitter, but the way we should consult with residents is face to face in a meeting or through the letterbox and ask for their opinion. That's what Mr. Rogerson did with his Bamber Bridge bulletin, and he got the right response. He took it back to the councillors, to the Bamber Bridge councillors. They responded favourably. In fact, I wrote an article on it thinking, I'm going to put this in the newsletter. It's brilliant. All the communities coming together. They're coming out with the right decision, and that's it. But unfortunately, I have to sit here today and say, it's not the right decision because it's not what the actual residents want. I don't want to really do this, but I'm going to do. I think we should defer it again, because if the residents haven't had the full look at the both things, and like Mr. Rodgers says, there is a compromise there, a very good one indeed as well, that we should be putting it to the residents of Bamber Bridge, not on Twitter, not on Bamber Bridge Matters, and things like that, because, all right, I'm on Bamber Bridge Matters, but I look at it maybe once every 3 weeks. You know, it's not it. We've let the community of Bamber Bridge down once again. And I say that with a sad note, is because we're not like that at this council. We go out and we make sure that our residents know everything that's going on. So I would like to propose that we defer it again. We do a proper consultation, not Twitter or anything like that. We do a proper consultation and we put both of them together and we come back with a decision that the residents, and I mean the residents of Bamber Bridge, can all heartily accept. So I move for a deferral to do just that, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Yates. I made a note of that. Councillor Colin Sharples, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, well, I am a brigger. And I can remember as a kid playing on Yankee Camp when it still stood there and listening to all the stories. And we deferred it last time, and I think correctly deferred it last time because of the aesthetic issue. This time, it is a commemoration. I'm quite happy with what they've got. I'm not sure we need to have another deferment and say, should it look like this and should it look like that? It is a commemoration. We need to move on and get this thing done and dusted. And I'm really happy with what's been proposed, and I'm prepared to second it, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor. Councillor Claire Hunter, please.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I'm very happy with the design. When you mentioned the residents from Derrick, where's the feedback? How do we know how many residents agreed with the new design that Derrick put forward and etc.?
Okay, is that a question, Claire, to Councillor Yates? Yeah, okay, Councillor Yates, and you come.
I believe that if you want to ask Derrick for that, he should be able to give you that information. That the meetings was with Mick Higgins, because you wasn't the councillor there, Claire, then at that time, and other Bamber Bridge councillors. They did ask me to get involved, but unfortunately I had a lot of county work on at the time, so I didn't do. But I kept in touch and went along, like Councillor Higgins was saying, yes, so that sounds good what you're doing, you know, and absolutely brilliant. But to sit here today and realise that all that work that was put in by residents, not just Derrick, that he's only one of maybe 40 odd or 50. He's only one person. But for them residents in Bamber Bridge not to have the say, I think it's deplorable. I think we should. It's not too late to defer. It's not a massive issue like it's a road going to be opened, or we're going to open a block of flats and let people have accommodation. It's something that we need to get right for the people of Bamber Bridge. The only reason I'm speaking out so strongly is not because Derrick with Bamber Bridge Bulletin and I do a community news, not for that. I'm speaking out because I'm a county councillor for the area, and I know that the Labour councillors, now that are on committee, and was before, because she was very good, all believed in what their residents said and the benefit for their residents. They asked the residents, do you want this or do you want this? And let the residents decide. So I'm strongly down that issue. I think if we go ahead and just say, well, it looks all right now, you know, that's okay. Let's go through. We're disrespecting our residents. I'll leave it there, Chair.
Yeah, I'm just going to have to come back a little bit on Councillor Yates before I bring Councillor Hunter in. Our role is here to be balanced. It's not no reference to our political bias in any way. But obviously, we've heard from John as well as Derek. So in terms of balance, please, we just keep it that way and keep it as objective as possible. Thank you. Claire, you okay with what you've just had back?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. I do think if there was feedback, we should have got it beforehand. But I've looked at it, I've read it, I like it. I mean, I'm a Bamber Bridge resident. I talk to Bamber Bridge residents. They like it. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm voting for it.
Okay, thanks for that. Debbie, I'm just going to bring you back in, please.
Thank you, Chair. It was just with reference to what Councillor Yates has said about deferral. We can defer this as many times as we want, but until the applicant, the person who's submitted this application, changes their design for the one Mr. Rogerson wants to do, we're not going to get anywhere. And they have chosen not to. They've come up with 3 designs of their own. They've been out to public consultation, and that consultation has given them the final option. If Mr. Rogerson wishes to put a separate application in, he can do that, and we'll bring that before committee as well. But the applicant hasn't chosen that design, and deferral isn't going to change that. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that, Debbie. Okay, so hang on, we've got. Hang on. I'm chairing this meeting. Okay, and I know, I know you want to come back in, but there's others ahead here. So, Councillor Molyneux, please.
Yeah, could I just ask for some clarity for what the officers just mentioned there about Mr. Rogerson's quite happy to, we're quite happy for him to put one in, but what will be the point if this is agreed this evening? Surely they'll get on with it. For an application to come in later will be a waste of time, sure.
Okay, so Debbie, do you want to come back to that, please?
Yeah. Any number of applications can come in. Everybody here could put an application in, and as long as they've got the permission of Lancashire County Council as the landowner, and they submit the relevant plans and do the relevant public consultation in the same way that the applicant has, then it's then up to Lancashire County Council as landowner to choose which one they want to go forward, or whoever is willing to fund that. But this isn't a platform to hijack somebody else's application with a third-party suggestion. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Yates, do you want to come back in?
This is not trying to hijack somebody else's application whatsoever. It was the Bamber Bridge hub that met with with residents to look at this project. The project was moving forward. It just astounds me that somebody put an application in and the Bamber Bridge hub is ignored. So I'll leave it there, Chair.
Thanks for that, Barry. Yeah. Okay. Can I just make a comment as Chair, just in terms of what we're talking about? We're talking about a commemoration of an historic thing which is not currently there. So I, for one, are not from Bamber Bridge, but I did play for them. I think I mentioned that last time, where I was told I'd never be a brigger, but that's okay. We only got them 1 promotion, but I'll accept that. But the important thing is we're talking about an historic situation which is going to get information displayed, which is I don't want to draw it into a negative. There is a lot of positive things about what we're discussing here. So I've got no one else indicating to speak. Sorry. One more. We'll just bring Phil in now, Councillor Phil Smith. And then what we'll do is I'll just recap in terms of what's been proposed and what's been seconded. That's okay. Thank you. Phil.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, I'm quite happy with the design, I think. I mean, when I looked at it, I think it actually looks 100 times better than the previous one, which was, to be quite honest, a bit of a mess. I think what I'm more concerned with, just at this stage, is the consultation process. And if it was a my neighbourhood hub, as they call nowadays, that have made that decision, i.e. the local councillors, that would be minuted and documented, is in the sense of who's made that decision. So presumably they've made the decision to go that way. What I'm interested in, I suppose, is Mr. Rogerson, was his option considered at the time? We had 3 or 4 options, presumably, and that one was considered as the best option. Was it considered at the time, Debbie?
You, Chair.
Hang on. Phil, yeah, Debbie, yes, go on, thanks.
Through you, Chair. I'm not sure whether it was discussed originally, but the 3 options that were put forward, that wasn't one of them.
But I've not shown it you today because there's lots of paperwork, but I've been given the names and addresses and the information and the responses from 19 people. It wasn't just Facebook. We've gone through a number of people, and I think it was one of the neighbourhood teams at the council who dealt with that side of things. But we've got the evidence to prove that consultation has occurred for these three options that the applicant wished to put forward.
Okay, I think there's probably, Chair, I'll just round up if I can. I think there's probably something to learn within the consultation process, I have to say, but I think on what I've seen today, I would be supporting it, I think.
Thanks for that, Phil. Okay, right, so what we're going to do, I've had a proposal on Councillor Adams for approval. I've had a second there by Councillor Sharples on that approval. We've had a deferral from Councillor Yates, which we don't have a seconder on. So what we're going to go for is the proposal of approval, and we're going to vote on that. That's okay. Thank you, everyone. So we're going to go to the electronic vote, I take it. And this is, Alex, do you need to just recap?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the proposal is to approve the application for the regeneration of the green space, with the preferred option being the Lectern Information Board to commemorate the Battle of Bamber Bridge.
Okay, everyone. So, Alex, once again, you just want to confirm the result, please?
Thank you. Yes, members have voted to approve the application for the regeneration of the green space.
Thank you. And just one last thing, that's an historic moment for South Ribble and for Bamber Bridge, so well done for all involved. So back to the chair, the proper chair. In you come, Caleb.
Thanks, Councillor Flannery, once again. How did it go?
Approved.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 9 this evening. Land to the south of Shawbrook Road and north of Altke Lane, Leyland. Catherine, if you'd like to present, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This application is for 154 dwellings with associated vehicle access and parking, private amenity space and landscaping, subsequent to the outline application. Sorry about that. We just had a technical hitch with the PowerPoint.
I think that's because Councillor Flannery took over the chair for the last item.
Okay, so the application's for 154 dwellings and it's in Site P, which is Altke Lane, an allocated site within the local plan. We've got Worden Park that lies to the east, and this is the boundary of the borough. This slide demonstrates the overall development of Site P. So Lovells have developed out B, that's located here. Hedgerows have carried out A, leading through to here, and that permission's been granted for the reserved matters for all of that. And so the application relates to parcels C, which were in a different ownership from parcels A, but Hedgerows now have the option to go forward with this site. The next application just demonstrates the location plan, and you can see the Lovells site here that's been developed out. And here's the Hedgerows site, and here's the application sites that we're discussing tonight. What's really important to recognise is, as part of the development of Site P, policy G9 of the local plan encouraged and supported the extension to Wordham Park. And this application, if approved tonight, will enable that extension of Wordham Park to come forward on the first occupation of the first dwelling within this application. And the next slide demonstrates the affordable housing. So in total, there will be 123 open market housing and 31 affordables. Those will be based on 23 two-bedroomed and 8 three-bedroomed. And they're located in these areas identified in parcel to the southeast corner, and then again in this part of the parcel here. So in total, throughout the Hedgerows site, they are pepper potted through and are identified. The next slide is going to show the elevations, but before we get to that, I just wanted to bring to the attention of the councillors, we've had 2 letters of objection. One relates to the separation distances as part of this property here, and they had extreme concerns because they hadn't appreciated when they bought it that the site was going to be developed out. I've kind of met with them, gone through the plans and talked through those issues. And whilst they accept it's not necessarily what they would like, they have a greater understanding that it meets our separation distance policies and that they are discounted market housing. The second letter of objection related to speed cameras and off-site highway works. There was concern about the extra highway numbers off Leyland Lane. Those aspects have already been discussed and approved through the outline application. There is money allocated because Homes England offered to pay towards a speed camera on Leyland Lane. However, LCC Highways don't consider that that is actually needed, but are looking to utilise the money in that locality to address any traffic issues. So that money's there, held by South Ribble, ready when a scheme comes forward. This slide demonstrates the elevation. So of course we've got the open market, and again this bottom one demonstrates a group of the affordables. So the materials are very similar, and it's basically what's classed as tenure blind. It will be difficult to spot the affordables except possibly the size of those dwellings. So the council consider as officers that that is acceptable. And then the next slide just demonstrates, as part of the statutory consultees, one of the main concerns that were raised to the scheme related to the ecology aspects. And we got a very detailed ecology response from our ecology consultants, and the applicant has worked with us to address those. So there were concerns about how to manage the relationship between Wordham Park and the new dwellings, and there was concerns about the loss of hedgerows and trees. So in terms of the ecological aspects, I've just put on the slide different types of bat and bird boxes that would be accommodated within the site, as you can see with these different symbols, and that will help address biodiversity going forward. In terms of the loss of trees, it is acknowledged that there will be trees lost in the site. However, there's a total of, I think, about over 185 new trees are going to be planted, and the hedgerows, where possible, will be maintained. So from that perspective, the statutory consultees have raised no objection, really. We did have issues in terms of the employment and skills plan. The applicant has again worked with the council to address that, so the outcomes are more focused within the Leyland South Ribble area. So to conclude, the application is recommended for approval. The Section 106 monies have been paid by Homes England for the extension to the Wordham Park and the landscape opportunities that provides, and subject to the conditions in the report, officers are recommending approval. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Catherine. So Leyland Lane's crying out for a speed camera. LCC say we don't need one. Get to LCC and sort them out, Councillor Yates. Right, do we have Mike Dawson of Red Row Homes with us this evening? I thought it might be you. Right, I'll usually say you've got 4 minutes, but take as long as you want.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the committee. I won't take 4 minutes. I'll be following a very similar vein to the previous speaker. I just want to take the opportunity to thank you for seeing our application tonight. I don't intend to repeat anything of the excellent presentation made by the officer, who I think has just succinctly summarised our application and the way we've dealt with it. I'd like to thank the officer and the authority for the professional and efficient way this application has been dealt with, and I'll be here to answer any questions should the chair allow me to do so. On that note, I shall leave you to your debate.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Thank you very much for that. Councillor Yates and then Councillor Flannery.
Right, thank you, Chairman. Before I start, because I just wish Catherine Lewis. No? Oh, you're doing it at the end. Okay, Chair. Right. I'll leave it quite simple then. Could I move the application with the conditions, Chair, please?
You certainly can, Councillor Yates. Councillor Flannery.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, well, thanks, Mark, for being aware of obviously the environment tonight. So good on you for appreciating that the report was excellent, which it will be, Catherine's last report by the sounds of it. Also, it's good to see that you've got a developer here who's doing work on the park on the first occupation of the first house rather than the last one, which some of them do. So well done for that. The affordable policy looks robust and sound. And the employment and skills plan. It's no surprise to me that Red Row Homes have worked with the council to do that because they've got a good track record and they also do a lot into the charitable sector. So well done all round, and I'm going to second it. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Flannery. Councillor Hester.
Sorry about that, Mr. Chairman. No, this site has been on the cards for a long, long time. As far as I'm concerned, it blends in with the other sites as well, Mr. Chairman, and I will go along with the others that are going for approval. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Hesketh. Councillor Muller.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Can I just ask, I've no problem with the application apart from the, could I have some clarity on the shared drive? I'm a bit concerned with this. It's as though you've got a shared drive where they're going to go up to the back end of the house. But that would prevent people from parking. I just wonder if there's going to be more parking on the road because of it. That's just a general question.
Mark, do you want to answer that question? No, I'll just do it from there. Okay.
So we take a great time in any element. Obviously, that's still equally extra. So I'm
All right, Mr. Councillor Molyneux, you're all right with that?
Not really. It doesn't seem to clarify for me. All I was bothered about was if you've got, say, one car's width, but you're going up the drive and where it splits off at the top end, surely you can't park on that part. Okay, all right, thank you.
Catherine, would you like to come in on Councillor Molyneux's?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to reassure Councillor Molyneux, the car parking standards are very much robustly have been assessed, and this development does meet them. The garage sizes are meet the standards, 6 by 3 metres. Sometimes on other developers we don't always get that, but I can assure you that they are and they have been met.
Thanks, Catherine. Councillor Mrs Green and then Councillor Will Adams.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm just a bit concerned about the camera on Leyland Lane. You go down Leyland Lane, good job there's grass verges to walk on because there's no pavements. But if you don't walk on the grass verge, your life's in your hands because the traffic is so fast down there. I think we really do need some sort of provision for camera or some traffic controlling measures. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with you. Unfortunately, LCC don't. Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think, thank you for the presentation. Again, I think this is fairly straightforward. Councillor Molyneux's point about the driveways, as someone who lives in a terraced house, that's certainly a luxury that I think more people should have. So I think we should move towards the vote, Chair, and I'm quite happy and will support this. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Adams. Have we got any other proposals? No? All right, so the recommendation is for approval. Councillor Flannery, I'll turn your hearing aid up. If we can go to the vote, please. Come on, Harry. Alex, would you like to confirm the result of the vote, please?
Thank you, Chair. Members have voted through unanimously to approve the Reserve Matters application for the erection of 154 dwellings subject to conditions.
All right. Moving on to item 10 this evening, land next to 249 Chapel Lane, Longton. And Janice, it's your turn.
Thank you, Chair. So this application relates to land off Chapel Lane in New Longton. The site's bounded by Chapel Lane to the south, the A59 to the west and Saunders Lane to the east. The site's in the green belt and is devoid of built development. The site is made up of a number of fields with hedgerow boundaries and a pond. You can just about make it out there. So permission in principle was granted in August last year for the erection of a detached dwelling with detached garage to part of the site fronting onto Chapel Lane. This current application is for full planning permission. The proposal is again for a detached dwelling, but includes this time the wider site. The aim is to provide a carbon offset project for the dwelling, which consists of a ground source heat pump, solar array and rainwater harvesting, together with the planting of 18,520 trees. So this is an artist's impression of the proposed dwelling, which has been designed to be in keeping with other properties in the surrounding area. It will be a modest-sized 3-bed dormer bungalow with domestic garden, driveway, parking area, together with the detached garage. So this image shows the type of ground-mounted solar panel system to be used. It will have 3 blocks of 10 kilowatt panels, providing up to 30 kilowatts of power. It's considered that it will have a very limited impact on the openness of the green belt. The ground source heat pump and rainwater harvesting will be below ground and therefore will have no impact on openness. This demonstrates the proposed planting scheme, which includes oak woodland, hedgerow, orchard planting and evergreens. The submitted details include a specific planting schedule with numbers of each type of trees. For example, there's 2,550 sessile oak and 822 field maple. The planting cannot be carried out until planning permission is in place, and the land will be tied to the dwelling as per condition 19. There's no objections from statutory consultees. Not reported on the committee report is the inclusion of an additional informative note to advise the applicant that part of the site is within the consultation zone of a gas pipeline. So whilst tree planting is not development, the applicant is advised to follow Cadent Gas and National Grid's guidance for tree planting restrictions near gas pipelines. And the informative note will provide details of how to access the advice. But essentially, they restrict types of trees to be planted within 10 metres of the pipeline. But in this case, the site is about 140 metres from the pipeline itself. So although it's within the consultation distance, it's not an issue. Just to report one late email received today supporting the proposal, but makes some suggestions for making the development more nature friendly as well as being environmentally friendly. So those comments will be passed to the applicant for information. And the application is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for your presentation, Janice. I'm just wondering how we can make it more nature friendly. Can we put another tree in? Right, okay. You mean nature and naturist? Right. Right, well, we don't have any registered speakers. The ward members don't wish to speak on this, and the applicant or agent doesn't wish to speak either. So I will open it straight up to committee. Councillor Smith and then Councillor Mrs Green.
Thank you, Chair. This obviously already has planning permission to a certain extent with regard to the PIP, which I probably wouldn't have supported had it come to planning committee, and along with all the other PIPs that we've had in New Longton, we're absolutely covered in PIPs. Be a few more PIPs, I think, when these fruit trees have grown, but there we are. Yeah, but apart from that, I mean, I think it's a great application, It just shows you what could be done or can be done with regard to the sort of the open land that we have around there. And yes, it's in Greenbelt, but it's exactly the sort of thing that should be done in Greenbelt, rather than a nice small application with regard to the housing development, and then a load of benefit for the council, for the area, for the community in the area itself. It's a huge area. Was it 10 acres, I think, or something like that? It was a huge area. So, yeah, fully supportive of it, Chair. And I think it'd be nice to see one or two more applications like this instead of developers being a little bit too greedy and overbuilding on all sites. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Smith. So that's proposal for approval. I've got Councillor Mrs Green, then Councillor Adams, then Councillor Esketh. So Councillor Mrs Green.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'll agree with Councillor Smith that what they're planning to do is tasteful and everything. But you know me, it still sticks in my throat. It's Greenbelt. No way about it. It's Greenbelt. And on page 124, at the bottom, it says planning history about the erection of one dwelling was refused on one ground that it constitutes inappropriate land use in the Greenbelt. And it's not considered that the applicant has demonstrated special circumstances to justify this proposal, which would harm the character and openness of the Greenbelt. You know, and then on the next page, page 125, it goes on to all the different things that they're proposing to put it in. And page 126, third paragraph down, it said the applicant is advised to contact the Environment Agency for pre-permit application discussions. That's not been done. And on page 128, under Greenbelt, it says the only criteria listed above that could be a consideration is the limited infilling in villages. The next paragraph goes on to say the proposal will introduce a detached dwelling and associated garage into a field that is currently open outside of the village and in the green belt. So it's not even considered for limited infilling in villages. So much as it's nice and everything, it doesn't match any of the things for Greenbelt. So I'm sorry, but I'm against this. Thank you.
Okay, so you propose a refusal. Okay. We'll be in a sticky situation in a couple of years when the government has its way and it starts filling in the Greenbelt left, right and centre. Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think actually this application is the opposite of Councillor Phil Smith's jokes. That means a good one, because his jokes are terrible, Phil. Sorry. But I do agree with you in terms of what you said about the application, Councillor Smith. I think this is a positive application. I think the only thing I'd like to say is that I'd like to see schemes like this not just for those quite expansive applications for those who can afford it. I'd like to see this spread out across the whole borough, and that's for the developers to maybe tighten their profit margins for the benefit of people and our environment. So I think it's a positive step to take forward, and I hope to see applications more like this in the future that has a bigger impact on the wider community. Thank you, Chair.
So you're seconding Councillor Smith's motion for approval? Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Councillor Hesketh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a groundbreaking development, actually, for the Western parishes. I'm in favour of it, in actual fact, because I think it covers all the criteria that we wish to have in South Ribble, where we have houses, ponds, trees, the whole lot. The snag is we can't do it everywhere, but this is a site that we can do it on, and I will go along with it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Hesketh. Do I have anyone wanting to second Councillor Green's motion to refuse? No. Yeah, can you take your mask off, because I can't hear you.
I will do now, and I'm going to speak. Yeah, I sympathise with Councillor Green from what she's saying about the green belt. It is sacrosanct as far as I'm concerned, and really we should be trying our very best to look after that side of it. As Councillor Hesketh said, it is difficult because, you know, there's only certain areas where this would be suitable on a one-off situation. Rather than they could have looked and tried to get lots of houses within that area as well, and that would have been dead against the policy that we're talking about. So I am a little bit stuck in the middle here, really, on whether yes, it's a nice application and making the most of it, which is fine, but we have to remember about the Greenbelt situation. So I'm a little bit undecided. I have to wait and see how the committee go first. Thank you.
Councillor Yates.
Yeah, thank you. I'm in the same situation with the Greenbelt. It's just a good thing that it's not in my division. So that's all I'll say on that one. But I would go along, because we're going to have to build these sort of houses in the future. That is definite what we're going to have to do. As long as we only build houses like that, one house for every 8 acres, 8 or 12 hectares or whatever, then I'd say it's not bad. You know, we can put up with that, but let's not start thinking of filling the Greenbelt full of houses when we've got brown land all over the place and enough housing land for the next 15 to 20 years. So I'm sorry I can't take well on with Councillor Green as much as I'd like to, but it is a thing for the future. But as long as they only do, like I said, keep them in 12 hectares of land, and I'd be happy.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Yates. So I don't have a second. Councillor Smith, are you seconding Councillor Green's now refusal? No. Okay, come on.
just to be clear on this, if I'm not mistaken, it's actually already got planning permission to build a house. What we're looking at is planting 15,000 trees and some water retention. That's what we're looking at. It's already got planning permission, so they could build on there and not plant a tree. And there'd be no benefit to the community or the borough or anywhere else in that, to be quite honest. So, which is, I mentioned about the pit before, planning in principle. We're getting far too many of those, I have to say, where we seem to lose control of the building regime. It's sort of an application on the back of a cigarette packet. And that's basically all it is. They get, in principle, you can build a house, followed by a planning application that you can't object to because it's already got planning. It's a weird system, I have to say. So really, all we're looking at, do we want to plant some trees, or do we not want to plant some trees and protect the land? Absolutely, 100%. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Smith. Right, well, we're going to go to the vote for approval, which has been moved by Councillor Smith and seconded by Councillor Adams. So, this is for approval of land next to 249 Chapel Lane. Okay, Alex, if we can have the result of that vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. Members have voted to approve the application for the erection of a detached dwelling with the environmental features subject to conditions.
Okay, thanks, Alex, for that one. Item number 5, item number 11 this evening. I thought it was item number 5, 11 Danes Drive, but it's item 11, 5 Danes Drive. And Janice, if you'd like to present this application and tell us why you're presenting it.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, the applicant is a serving officer of the council, so under the scheme of delegation, it needs to come to planning committee. So the application relates to a 2-storey detached dwelling on Danes Drive, Walton Dale. It's within a predominantly residential area and within the existing built-up area as defined by policy B1. So there's a side extension proposed at first floor erected over the existing garage, and then a rear extension. So that's the first floor extension, and that's the rear extension. So this just shows the proposed elevations. The first floor element will be set back from the principal elevation by 1 metre, as per our design guide. The remaining roof to the garage will be changed from flat to a sloping roof, if you can see there. The proposals are to be constructed in materials to match the existing property, i.e. red brick. So these are just some photographs of the application property, the front and rear, as existing. And then these photographs just show the relationship to neighbouring properties. So you've got, that's for the rear view, and then again the neighbouring properties to the rear and opposite on the opposite side of Danes Way. And then just to note that this just shows there is an existing extension of a similar design that was improved in 2006. So the application is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Janice. Councillor Adams, Councillor Flannery, Councillor Yates. In that order, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think you probably know what I'm going to say here because I've said it so many times. Probably a question for Stephen in terms of when we actually changing this policy, because there's things like this really, for me, are very straightforward and shouldn't really be coming to the planning committee. All I would say is that it's straightforward, it's policy compliant. We should approve it tonight, and I wish whoever at the applicant is. Every success in the future. Thank you.
Yeah. When we looked at, can't remember when it was now, it was a little while ago, wasn't it, in terms of amending the scheme of delegation, I don't think we were ever looking at where there was a serving officer applying. We were looking more at the issue of where it was relations and agents were putting things in. The difficulty would be to the outside world if we, under delegated powers, were making decisions for fellow officers who we deal with on a daily basis. I think that would raise some eyebrows. But the other big complication, which I've discussed with Caleb, is that there's been a very significant change to the use classes order. So we need to pick up that in the scheme of delegation as well, because a lot of like the hot food takeaways and the other types of application that were there previously are now changed. So really we need a root and branch look at the whole thing, which I'm currently on with at the moment, but it's proved to be a lot bigger job than when I first set out on it, to be honest, but we will be bringing a further report. Thanks.
Thanks for that, Stephen. I think what Councillor Adams meant to say was, because of this item, his mother'd have to pay for a taxi. Councillor Flannery.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I'm going to second approval, Councillor Adams' approval on this, but I'd just also like to say, just to note that it's good to see that one of our officers, although he should have to go through this, but Andrew Daniels he's had to apply and come to committee. But he's securing his employment, he's investing in his home for his family, he's going to create local employment, local materials, local workmen. So well done to Andrew, and we hope it goes well. So I'm seconding it. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Flannery. Councillor Yates.
Right, thank you. I do agree with going for approval, but just a quick question to Janice. Is the officer a direct officer for South Ribble?
I believe he's shared service. Yeah, but based here.
I were asking that, Chair, because if we had an officer from Preston, we want to come here. It wants to come in here. It could have been done with delegated powers. So if it's an officer that's employed by Chorley Council, he should never have come here. You know, but that's just a comment.
Well, he works in this building, so and it's shared services. But here we are. It's in front of us, and I suggest we go to the vote if we can. So the officer recommendation is for approval. If we can go to the vote, please. Okay, Alex, if you confirm the outcome of that vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. Members have voted unanimously to approve the application for the front and rear extension, subject to conditions.
Okay, thanks very much, Alex, for that. Before we all leave, ladies and gentlemen, anybody watching this at home, we are ending the stream now. That's the end of the meeting.